It began, as these things often do, not with a press conference or a triumphant announcement, but with a quiet digital ghost, a 47-page apparition materializing in the shadowed corners of the spaceflight community in the late autumn of 2025. The document was unassuming in name, a dry technical annex, but its contents were a thunderclap that echoed across every observation dome, every university department, every basement workshop where starry-eyed believers had kept the lunar faith for decades. Within its meticulously formatted pages, nestled between risk assessment charts and regulatory compliance statements, was a single line that stopped the heart, a declaration so audacious it felt less like a plan and more like a prophecy. NASA, in concert with a constellation of private partners, intended to establish a permanent, continuously inhabited base on the lunar South Pole before the close of 2028. This was not a return. This was not a flag-planting visit. This was a claim of territory, a statement of infinite permanence, and the opening move in a silent, high-stakes game whose rules were being written in real time. The file's provenance was a mystery, a leak from a source who understood the seismic weight of what they held. It bore the unmistakable fingerprints of authenticity, the specific jargon, the internal project code names, the exacting budgetary footnotes known only to a handful of cleared individuals. It was not a fantasy, not a white paper. It was a blueprint, a battle plan, and its sudden appearance felt less like an accident and more like a strategic necessity. For the timeline it laid out was not born from idle engineering ambition. It was a countdown triggered by another nation's shadow moving across the same lunar chessboard. China's Chang missions had been methodical, precise, their robotic landers and rovers scouting the very same desolate, resource-rich Badlands. Their public statements spoke of a research station, an international lunar research base, by the 2030s. But the whisper network of intelligence agencies suggested a more urgent, more robotic push. A claim-staking mission to the South Pole, a robotic outpost that could, under certain interpretations of celestial law, establish a de facto zone of control. NASA's leaked plan was the answer to a question the public hadn't even fully learned to ask. What happens when the new space race isn't about prestige, but about property? And the property in question is a place of sublime, almost cruel perfection, Shackleton Crater. Imagine a scar on the face of the moon so deep its floor is plunged in permanent, absolute midnight, a darkness older than civilization. For billions of years, this abyss has been a cold trap, capturing and preserving every volatile molecule that ever drifted into its grasp. Cometary ice, water ice, frozen carbon dioxide, a priceless load of resources sealed in a perpetual freezer. Now lift your eyes to the crater's rim. There, a topographic miracle occurs. Due to the moon's negligible axial tilt, certain peaks along that rim are bathed in near-endless sunlight, some for over 200 days at a stretch. Picture it, a line, a razor's edge, where one foot stands an eternal golden day, and a glance over the shoulder peers into an eternal star-flecked void. Power and propellant, sunlight and shadow, survival and treasure, separated by a walk of mere kilometers. It is the most valuable piece of extraterrestrial real estate ever identified, and the leaked documents place the base flag squarely upon its sun-drenched ridge. The timeline is a breathless, year-by-year sprint that redefines the possible. It begins in 2026, not with astronauts but with robotic precursors. Uncrewed cargo missions, heavy-lift landers filled with bulldozers, power units, and autonomous construction equipment will touch down on that illuminated rim. These are not delicate science packages. They are the groundwork, the silent pavers of the road. They will level terrain, clear fields of treacherous boulders, and prepare the foundation for what comes next. The following year, 2027, will see the arrival of the architecture of life itself. Modules, hardened against radiation and the relentless micrometeoroid rain, will be deposited with pinpoint precision. The ballet of assembly will be largely robotic, a dance of autonomous rovers and pre-programmed connections, watched over by a handful of short-term human overseers perhaps orbiting in the Gateway Station, their faces pressed against viewports as the skeleton of a new world takes form below. The crescendo arrives in 2028. By then, the lunar outpost, now codenamed Artemis Base, is awaiting shell its systems tested and verified by remote control. And then a ship descends. Not the spidery, antique silhouette of an Apollo module, but something massive, propulsive, and utterly modern. It will settle on the regolith, a cloud of dust falling in slow motion. A hatch will open. And the first rotating crew, a blend of NASA astronauts and commercial partner personnel, will step out not as visitors but as residents. They will cross the threshold of an airlock into a habitable space meant to be occupied not for days, but for months. They will be the first humans in history to call another world home, to watch Earth rise not as a glorious beacon of return, but as a beautiful, distant blue star in their black sky. That moment, late in 2028, is the inflection point, the irreversible step. After that, there is no going back to a time when humanity was confined to a single planet. This insane ambition is born on the back of 4 quiet engineering revolutions, each solving a problem that doomed previous concepts to the drawing board. The first is the matter of sheer mass. To build a base, you must move mountains of gear. And here, the document reveals the colossal silhouette of Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander, a towering vehicle capable of delivering 15 metric tons of cargo to the South Pole. It is a robotic workhorse, a freighter for the new age, its existence making the logistics of permanence plausible. But even a lander of that scale has limits. For the truly massive monolithic components, the plan turns to the most audacious spacecraft yet conceived, SpaceX's Starship lunar variant. This stainless steel Leviathan, refueled in Earth orbit, can bring 100 tons to the moon in a single flight. It is the cargo ship, the freighter that can deliver an entire habitat module or a year's worth of supplies in one staggering delivery. Its reusability transforms the economics from fantastically expensive to merely staggeringly difficult. The third miracle is what that Starship might deliver. Within its cavernous payload bay could rest a compact, densely packed cylinder. Once on the surface, this cylinder would begin to change. It would unfold, it would inflate, it would grow. These are Sierra Space's inflatable habitat modules, structures with skins stronger than steel that can blossom open like lunar flowers, expanding from a compact transit volume into spacious, multi-level living quarters, laboratories, and workshops. They offer volume, a psychological necessity for long-duration stays, without the prohibitive cost of launching rigid structures of equivalent size. They are the spaces where humans will live, work, and perhaps even dream, their walls softened by fabric and the gentle, earthly light of LED sunrises. But volume and cargo are meaningless without power. The lunar night is 14 Earth days of profound, energy-sapping cold, and while solar arrays on the illuminated rim can provide much, they cannot alone guarantee the unwavering, fail-safe power needed for permanent, critical life support. This is where the document's most startling revelation lies. Buried in the technical specifications, in the dry language of power subsystem appendices, is the truth. The base will be powered by a fission surface power system. A small, buried nuclear reactor, delivered as a sealed unit, will be robotically emplaced a safe distance from the habitats. It will be started up, and it will generate kilowatts of heat and electricity, continuously, relentlessly, through the long days and the endless nights. It is a buried heart, ticking with atomic certainty, keeping the lights on forever. It is the ultimate declaration that this is not a camp but a colony. It says we are here to stay, and we bring our own sun with us. Yet for all its grandeur, this base, the habitats, the power plant, the crew rotations, is merely phase 1. It is the necessary foundation for the concealed, breathtaking ambition of phase 2, the part of the plan no one was ever meant to see so soon. The documents hint at it in the cargo manifests. Specialized regolith processing plants, larger versions of the technologies tested to extract water ice from the lunar soil. But the purpose of this extraction goes far beyond drinking water and oxygen for the residents. It is about fuel. The plan outlines in incremental steps the construction of a cryogenic fuel depot at the lunar base. Water ice, split into hydrogen and oxygen, the most powerful chemical rocket propellants known, will be refined, liquefied, and stored in vast, shadow-chilled tanks. This changes everything. Suddenly, the moon is no longer just a destination. It becomes a gas station. A spacecraft launching from Earth need only carry enough propellant to reach lunar orbit, a fraction of what is needed to go anywhere else. It can dock at the gateway, descend to the surface base, refill its tanks with locally sourced, cryogenic propellant, and then launch from the moon's 1/6 gravity with a full load, bound for the depths of the solar system. Mars missions become radically more feasible. Journeys to the asteroid belt become conceivable. The economics of the entire solar system pivot on this one point. The base transforms from an outpost into a port, the first off-world infrastructure for a true spacefaring civilization. The moment the first kilogram of lunar liquid hydrogen is pumped into a waiting spacecraft tank is the moment the shackles of Earth's gravity well are truly, permanently broken. This, then, is the full, staggering vision contained within those 47 leaked pages. It is not a plan for a few footprints and flags. It is a blueprint for a beachhead, and then a springboard. It is a race against a rival superpower for the keys to the inner solar system, played out in the silent, airless dark of a crater older than life itself. The urgency is palpable, a silent scream in every line of the Gantt charts and risk matrices. The wonder is in the sublime, almost fictional perfection of the site itself, a place crafted by cosmic coincidence to beckon the next step in our evolution. And the deep, resonant humanity of it lies in the image of those first residents, not looking homeward with longing, but outward from their new home, with a fuel gauge reading full and the infinite stars ahead waiting, finally, for the traffic to begin. The leak was not a mistake. It was a message in a bottle cast from the future. It tells us that the next chapter of human history will not be written on Earth, but on a sunlit ridge overlooking an eternal darkness, and that chapter begins not in some distant, hazy tomorrow, but before this decade is out. The countdown is no longer theoretical. It is alive, and it is ticking in the silent, sun-drenched dust of the moon.